Hey book readers, my virtual TBR bookshelf is fairly small, but it seems to grow by the day. Today I'm sharing 25 books that I want to read ASAP, and hopefully by doing this I'll motivate myself to actually check some of these off. Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is 608 pages, and I get scared of anything over 400, so there's probably a reason I've been avoiding this. It's been on my list since 2016. Not sure why I originally added it, but the cover artwork screams modern sci-fi, and that's definitely in my lane. The description is that the last remnants of the human race left a dying Earth, desperate to find a new home among the stars. Following in the footsteps of their ancestors, they discover the greatest treasure of the past age, a world terraformed and prepared for human life. But all is not right in this new Eden. In the long years since the planet was abandoned, the work of its architects has borne disastrous fruit. The planet is not waiting for them, pristine and unoccupied. New masters have turned it from a refuge into mankind's worst nightmare. Now, two civilizations are on a collision course, both testing the boundaries of what they will do to survive. As the fate of humanity hangs in the balance, who are the true heirs of this new Earth? A Boy and His Dog at the End of the World by C.A. Fletcher. This has been on my list since 2019. It's a dystopian sci-fi with a pup. What more can you ask for? The description reads as, "My name's Grizz. My childhood wasn't like yours. I've never had friends, and in my whole life I have not met enough people to play a game of football. My parents told me how crowded the world used to be, but we were never lonely on our remote island. We had each other and our dogs. Then the thief came. There may be no law left except what you make of it, but if you steal my dog, you can at least expect me to come after you. Because if we aren't loyal to the things we love, what's the point?" After reading the description again, I kind of think like, isn't that the plot of John Wick? Damon by Daniel Suarez. I've loved several books by Suarez, including Influx, Delta V, and Change Agent. Damon is one of the highest rated of Suarez's books on Goodreads, but it's 632 pages long. The books of his I've read so far feature future tech and science to create novels that are suspenseful, gritty, and action-packed. And this one has been on my list for 3 years. The quick description of it is a high-tech thriller for the wireless age that explores the unthinkable consequences of a computer program running without human control, a daemon, designed to dismantle society and bring about a new world order. The War of the Flowers by Tad Williams. The description of this one is, Theo Vilmos's life is about to take a real turn for the worse. He is drawn from his home in Northern California into the parallel world of Fairy. For unknown to him, he is a pivotal figure in a war between certain of Fairy's powerful lords and the rest of these strange creatures who live in this exotic realm. I saw another booktuber who recommended this on a list of underrated fantasy novels, and I thought it sounded really cool, especially because Fairy is involved, and that provides limitless options for an author. But guess what? 826 pages. I can sense a theme here with why I haven't gotten around to a lot of these. Salvation Day, a sci-fi horror by Kaylee Wallace. The published description of this one is, Zara knew every detail of the plan. House of Wisdom, a massive exploration vessel, had been abandoned by the government of Earth a decade earlier, when a deadly virus broke out and killed everyone on board in a matter of hours. But now it could belong to her people if they were bold enough to take it. All they needed to do was kidnap Jaswinder Bhattacharya, the sole survivor of the tragedy, and the last person whose genetic signature would allow entry to the spaceship. But what Zara and her crew could not know was what waited for them on the ship, a terrifying secret buried by the government, a threat to all of humanity that lay sleeping alongside the orbiting dead. I saw that my library had this ebook back in 2019, so I added it to my list, and it's been collecting virtual dust ever since. It has a similar sounding foundation to George R.R. Martin's Tough Voyaging, a book that I've read a few times because the premise is just so good, so hopefully Salvation Day is a winner as well. Blackwater Sister. This is a fantasy novel by Zen Cho. Jessamine Teo is closeted, broke, and moving back to Malaysia, a country she left when she was a toddler. So when Jess starts hearing voices, she chalks it up to stress. But there's only one voice in her head, and it claims to be the ghost of her estranged grandmother, Amma. In life, Amma was a spirit medium, the avatar of a mysterious deity called the Black Water Sister. Now she's determined to settle a score against a gang boss who has offended the god, and she's decided Jess is going to help her do it. Drawn into a world of gods, ghosts, and family secrets, Jess finds that making deals with capricious spirits is a dangerous business. As Jess fights for retribution for Amma, she'll also need to regain control of her body and destiny. If she fails, the Blackwater Sister may finish her off for good. This is kind of the same story as the last one. It popped up on new books that my local library added to their catalog, and it sounded right up my alley. The Moat in God's Eye by Larry Niven. I read Ringworld by Niven several years ago and I liked it. Didn't love it, but it was solid. So I wanted to give him another chance, and this book was recommended to me by another booktuber. It was published way back in 1974, and it's 596 pages long. The quick synopsis of it is, in 3016, the Second Empire of Man spans hundreds of star systems thanks to faster-than-light Alderson Drive. Intelligent beings are finally found from the Moat, an isolated star in a thick dust cloud. The bottled-up ancient civilization, at least 1 million years old, are welcoming, kind, yet evasive, with a dark problem they have not solved in over 1 million years. I have no idea what the dark problem that needs a solution might be, but I'm hoping it explores the Fermi paradox in some way. Blind Sight by Peter Watts. The story follows a crew of astronauts sent out as the Third Wave, following 2 series of probes to investigate a trans-Neptunian Kuiper Belt comet dubbed Burns-Caulfield that has been found to be transmitting an unidentified radio signal to an as-yet unknown destination elsewhere in the solar system, followed by their subsequent first contact. I believe this was another underrated sci-fi book suggested by a booktuber, and I'm a sucker for first contact stories. This sounded a bit like Saturn Run by John Sanford, where there's a race to figure out what the aliens are up to, and that sounds perfect. Critical Mass by Daniel Suarez. As I mentioned earlier, I've read quite a few Suarez books, and this is a sequel to Delta V, a book that I enjoyed enough to continue reading more of the series. That's kind of unusual for me. I'm typically content to just read the first book and call it a day unless it really pulls me in. The description of this book is, when unforeseen circumstances during an innovative and unsanctioned commercial asteroid mining mission leave 2 crew members stranded, those who make it back must engineer a rescue, all while navigating a shifting web of global political alliances and renewed Cold War tensions. With Earth governments consumed by the ravages of climate change and unable to take risks necessary to make rapid progress in space, the crew must build their own next-gen spacecraft capable of mounting a rescue in time for the asteroid's next swing by Earth. In the process, they'll need to establish the first spin-gravity station in deep space, the first orbiting solar power satellite and refinery, and historic infrastructure on the moon's surface, all of which could alleviate a deepening ecological, political, and economic crisis back on Earth, and prove that space-based industry is not only profitable, but possibly humanity's best hope for a livable, peaceful future. The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This is a fantasy and historical fiction novel described as an imaginative alchemy of the Golem and the Jinni, the Grace of Kings, and Uprooted, in which the future of a magical Middle Eastern kingdom rests in the hands of a clever and defiant young con artist with miraculous healing gifts. I like The Lies of Locke Lamora and Foundryside, which both have thieves as their main characters, and it's tough to pass up a book with a good grifter as a hero. The Poppy War by R.F. Kang, an epic historical military fantasy inspired by the bloody history of China's 20th century and filled with treachery and magic. This sounds like some of the martial arts movies I got into in the early 2000s, like Fearless, Hero, Curse of the Golden Flower, and House of Flying Daggers, and I'm totally in. Ascension by Nicholas Binge. This is a mind-bending speculative thriller in which the sudden appearance of a mountain in the middle of the Pacific Ocean leads a group of scientists to a series of jaw-dropping revelations that challenge the notion of what it means to be human. The description reminded me of The Chronolist by Robert Charles Wilson, in which a 200-foot stone pillar just appears out of nowhere to commemorate a military victory that will happen 20 years in the future. I was clearly way too excited about this one because I emailed my local librarian about it, asking him to either order it or do an interlibrary loan for me so I could get my hands on it. only to find out that it wasn't coming out for another 3 months. So yeah, I'm excited about this one. To Shape a Dragon's Breath by Monoquill Blackgoose. This one is described as a young indigenous woman enters a colonizer-run dragon academy and quickly finds herself at odds with the approved way of doing things. Yet again, this populated on a list of new ebooks that my library was carrying. The cover is eye-catching, and I don't think I've met my quota for dragons in 2023. Untethered Sky by Fonda Lee. This one is only 152 pages, so I gotta offset the thick daddies with these shorties, and usually I tend to choose the short ones first and just cross those off the list, so this might come up pretty soon. The book jacket description is, Esther's family was torn apart when a manticore killed her mother and baby brother, leaving her with nothing but her father's painful silence and a single overwhelming need to kill the monsters that took her family. Esther's path leads her to the King's Royal Mews, where the giant rocks of legend are flown to hunt manticores by their brave and dedicated rookers. Paired with a fledgling rock named Zara, Esther finds purpose and acclaim by devoting herself to a calling that demands absolute sacrifice in a creature that will never return her love. The terrifying partnership between woman and rock leads Esther not only on the Empire's most dangerous manticore hunt, but on a journey of perseverance and acceptance. My takeaway is that it's a fantasy novella that I can read in just a few hours. So when I have a craving for fantasy, I can satisfy it quickly rather than taking weeks to read some 800-page brick. A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. As a young Antari magician, Kell is one of the last magicians with the rare ability to travel between the 4 parallel Londons, which he calls red, gray, white, and black. Kell officially serves the royal family of Red London, the Maresh Empire, as an ambassador, traveling between worlds to deliver messages, letters of importance, and other such news. However, Kell has a secret life as a smuggler, servicing people willing to pay for even the smallest glimpses of magic. It's a risky pastime with dangerous consequences. After a smuggling job goes wrong, Kell escapes to Grey London, where he finds Delilah Bard, a young thief looking for a taste of adventure and a chance at something more. Delilah first saves Kell, then captures him and talks him into going with him. In a world with magic, it's of course unavoidable that things go horribly wrong along the way. After I enjoyed The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue so much, I figured I needed to read another book by Schwab, and this one has the earmarks of a winner. Babel, an Arcane History by R.F. Kang. I'll admit I was drawn to the artwork of this book's cover. The gold lettering pops atop the black and white illustration. It's described as a historical fantasy epic that grapples with student revolutions, colonial resistance, and the use of language and translation as the dominating tool of the British Empire. I took a linguistics course in college, so the language element of this book sounds pretty cool. I'm interested to see how that will play a part in the novel. And my librarian emailed me just a couple days ago saying that he was at a thrift store or an estate sale, and that he had found a hardcover copy of Babel for 50 cents, so he's getting it for me. So hopefully I should be reading this one soon. The Wager, a tale of shipwreck, mutiny, and murder by David Gran. I've read 2 other books by Gran, The White Darkness, a nonfiction about a man who is related to someone from the Shackleton expedition, walking across Antarctica alone, and I also read The Lost City of Z, another nonfiction about a mysterious lost city in the Amazon, and Percy Fawcett, an explorer who went looking for it and never returned. The Wager is that same lane of nonfiction focused on explorers and adventurers. It's described as a page-turning story of shipwreck, survival, and savagery, culminating in a court-martial that reveals a shocking truth. The powerful narrative reveals the deeper meaning of the events on the Wager, showing that it was not only the captain and crew who ended on trial, but the very idea of empire. Deep as the Sky, Red as the Sea by Rita Chang Epig. This is described as a riveting, roaring adventure novel about a legendary Chinese pirate queen, her fight to save her fleet from the forces allied against them, and the dangerous price of power. Again, this has awesome cover art and a great title. You know, what can I say? I'm an easy man to entice. Sort of surprising that I haven't been scammed by a whole bunch of Nigerian princes yet or anything. And this one is sitting on my nightstand. I have it ready and waiting in the queue. I will be reading it soon. Die with Zero, Getting All You Can from Your Money and Your Life by Bill Perkins. Die with Zero presents a startling new and provocative philosophy as well as practical guide on how to get the most out of your money and out of your life. It's intended for those who place lifelong memorable experiences far ahead of simply making and accumulating money for one's so-called golden years. In short, Bill Perkins wants to rescue you from oversaving and underliving. Regardless of your age, Die with Zero will teach you Perkins' plan for optimizing your life stage by stage so you're fully engaged and enjoying what you've worked and saved for. I enjoy personal finance books and strive to make the most of the meager amount I do have. Although I don't even know if I 100% agree with the principles seemingly outlined in this book, I'm interested in learning more about it. The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. Described as a tale of pirates and sorcerers, forbidden artifacts, and ancient mysteries, and one woman's quest to seize a final chance at glory. The book cover got me again, guys. It's energetic, vibrant, and nautical. Right away, it lets me know that there will be sea monsters and big old wooden ships. Those are some tasty starting ingredients that I can get into. Ancillary Justice by Ann Leckie. My wife recommended this one to me because she really liked it and thought it is right in my wheelhouse, and the description certainly sounds like it. On a remote, icy planet, the soldier known as Breck is drawing closer to completing her quest. Once, she was the Justice of Torin, a colossal starship with an artificial intelligence linking thousands of soldiers in the service of the Raj, the empire that conquered the galaxy. Now, an act of treachery has ripped it all away, leaving her with one fragile human body, unanswered questions, and a burning desire for vengeance. The final feather in the cap is that Ancillary Justice won both the Hugo and Nebula Awards, so it's gotta be good, right? Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. I've read numerous Bachman books and had great experience with almost all of them. A Man Called Uva, Beartown, Us Against You, Britt Marie Was Here, and Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer. It's described as a poignant comedy about a crime that never took place, a would-be bank robber who disappears into thin air, and 8 extremely anxious strangers who find they have more in common than they ever imagined. I love Bachman's characters, and a couple of them, namely Uva and Britt Marie, make the books a joy to read due to their quirkiness. I'm expecting more of that from this one. The Lincoln Highway by Amor Towles. In June 1954, 18-year-old Emmett Watson is driven home to Nebraska by the warden of the work farm, where he has just served a year for involuntary manslaughter. His mother long gone, his father recently deceased, and the family farm foreclosed upon by the bank, Emmett's intention is to pick up his 8-year-old brother and head west, where they can start their lives anew. But when the warden drives away, Emmett discovers that 2 friends from the work farm have hidden themselves in the trunk of the warden's car. Together, they have hatched an altogether different plan for Emmett's future. After I was blown away by the writing and main character in A Gentleman in Moscow, I knew I needed to read more Towles, and I can't wait to start on this one. Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I saw this book on my library's new releases shelf and immediately put it on my to-be-read list. The description is, 20-year-old Violet Sorengale was supposed to enter the scribe quadrant, living a quiet life among books and history. Now the commanding general, also known as her tough as Talon's mother, has ordered Violet to join the hundreds of candidates striving to become the elite of Navarre, dragon riders. But when you're smaller than everyone else and your body is brittle, death is only a heartbeat away, because dragons don't bond to fragile humans. They incinerate them. With fewer dragons willing to bond with cadets, most would kill Violet to better their own chances of success. The rest would kill her just for being her mother's daughter. The Zandon Rorson, the most powerful and ruthless wing leader in the Riders Quadrant. She'll need every edge her wits can give her just to see the next sunrise. Yet with every day that passes, the war outside grows more deadly. The kingdom's protective wards are failing, and the death toll continues to rise. Even worse, Violet continues to suspect leadership is hiding a terrible secret. Friends, enemies, lovers, everyone at Bascaith War College has an agenda, because once you enter, there are only 2 ways out: graduate or die. It sounds like this mixes Quidditch from Harry Potter and dragons from Game of Thrones, so count me in. The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. After the gods warred and drove themselves to extinction, the cataclysm of their fall shattered the land of Vigrio. Now a new world is rising, where power-hungry jarls feud and monsters stalk the woods and mountains. A world where the bones of the dead gods still hold great power for those brave or desperate enough to seek them out. Now, as whispers of war echo across the mountains and fjords, fate follows in the footsteps of three people: a huntress on a dangerous quest, a noble woman who has rejected privilege in pursuit of battle fame, and a Thrail who seeks vengeance among the famed merchants known as the Bloodsworn. All three will shape the fate of the world as it once more falls under the shadow of the gods. Seems like a classic high fantasy novel, and I've seen it recommended by several booktubers, so I thought it would go on my list as well. There you have it, all the books I'm waiting to read soon. I plan to post an update eventually and see which ones I got around to reading, which ones I should consider taking off my TBR list. Remember to like and subscribe. Happy reading.